Okay, so good afternoon. I hope you're all keeping well and coping with this dreadful virus that we seem to be dealing with now at the moment. I trust we're probably all working from home now, so I hope you can get some private space and that your internet connections will hold well. So this is a webinar for the Generation Data Project. This is an EU Erasmus Plus project and is bringing together partners and experts from Poland, Belgium, Lithuania, Spain, Denmark and Ireland. So we're kind of well into this project now and well into the second year of it. The project broadly aims to provide training and a range of learning resources in data management. And we hope to offer this to a wider cohort throughout Europe as the project goes on. So we'd initially hoped that this would be delivered as part of a training week. So this week was down for a full training week in Ireland, and we had about 16 participants going to take place during that week. But we've had to obviously cancel that. So we're now going to fill that with this webinar. So one of the pluses is it now is allowing us to offer this to a greater range of people, and I think there's over 40 people signed up to this today. Just a couple of housekeeping measures before we start. So Zoom may be intermittent at the moment because I guess everybody throughout Europe is using this. So, there's probably pressure on the platform. So, stick with it anyway. One of the things we're going to do, this is going to be taped. So, maybe if you miss out or something like that, you can manage to log in later on. So you can ask questions during this from a text viewpoint, and the speakers will probably pick up on that and try to answer them. And then at the end, we're going to have a kind of a question and answer situation anyway. So basically, just to briefly talk through the running order then. So we will kick off. I will pass you over in a minute to Dr. Joanne Markovic from the University of Szczecin, and she's going to talk a little bit about the Generation Data Toolkit and maybe give a little bit more of a background of the project. So we're then going to move to a little bit more of to get a critical perspective on the challenges of using and managing data in the workplace or in our modern world. So that will be kicked off by Dr. Owen Fury, who's a lecturer in Letterkenny Institute of Technology. And then we will have Éanna O'Murrough, who's a technologist and has a number of startup companies who will add to that discussion. We're going to move back a little bit more then to the Generation Data outputs themselves, and Orla Casey from Feltec in Ireland is going to talk a bit about the learning resources that have been developed. And then Catherine Neal will then take us on to look at some of the online resources that have been developed during this project. So without further ado, I think we might kick off, and each of the speakers will give a little brief introduction to themselves before they present. So maybe if I could hand it over now to Dr. Joanna Markovic from the University of Szczecin in Poland. Joanna.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Joanna Markiewicz. I represent the University of Szczecin. I am an academic teacher. My scientific interests are focused on innovations and institutional theory. I'm the manager of this project because the University of Szczecin is the leading partner in Generation Data Project. I think that will be enough for now. Is it time for the next speaker to say?
No. If you could.
Do you want me to?
Yeah, if you do your presentation now and each
can
introduce
because
themselves.
I thought that now we are going to introduce ourselves. Okay, so it's a great pleasure that I can join this meeting. Before I get to that point, let me have a kind request to you, because as we are all aware, we are working from home right now because we need to stay at home. And I have undertaken all necessary steps to avoid any unexpected situation like the child screaming or the dog barking, but please be forgiven if something, unpredictable happens. Okay, so now let's get to the point. I think, well, my presentation will be focused on the Generation Data Toolkit, but let me underline that I think that the whole project and its intellectual results are very interesting, and I think because the topic is really current in nowadays world. We as academics, we deal a lot with data. We gather them, we process them because we need them to for our research. We also deal a lot of with a lot of data which are related to our students. So this topic is very, very important. And I'm sure, I believe that your skills in teaching about managing data will increase. And this way you will be able to raise awareness about managing data among your students. Let me share with you with my presentation. Just a second. Share the screen. Just a second. I have some technical problem right now. Can you see my presentation?
Not at the moment.
Not at the moment, just a second. I'm sure, oh, right now?
Yeah, it's coming out.
Perfect.
That's it.
Okay, I hope it's better right now. So let me introduce the whole partnership of the project. As I mentioned, the University of Szczecin is the leading partner. Letterkenny Institute of Technology is responsible mainly for this learning, training, and teaching activity. And Patrick, I think that we all regret a lot that we couldn't meet in Letterkenny. Faltech Software Innovations Ltd is the company, is a partner that is responsible for the development of the content of the course. European e-learning Institute is the partner who is responsible for our IT solutions, and this institute will develop an online resource. We also have Vilnius Gediminas Technological University, who is supporting us in the course development, and USAN from Belgium, who is responsible for disseminating the project results. Yes, this is the University of Szczecin, the leading partner, one of the biggest higher education institutions in the region. And a few words about the project. I think I've already explained you the main idea of the project, why this topic is very important right now. Well, what can I add? I think that in this rapidly growing economy, all IT skills are actually essential to stay competitive. Can you hear me right now? Because I think,
yes.
Okay,
yeah,
that's good. Are essential to stay competitive and be a part of modern society. Therefore, I'm sure that all data skills, IT tools are becoming more and more yes, what were the main intellectual outputs of the project? The first output is Generation Data Toolkit. Just a second, something is going on here. The expression toolkit is quite vague, but I'm going to explain you everything just in a few seconds. Then we had another output is Generation Data Course, and Generation Data Online Course, which will be presented by other partners. So the Generation Data Toolkit introduces the main assumptions of data skills for professionals, HEI, professionals, students, and everyone who will be interested in the development of data skills. What are the main problems that we were able to identify in higher education, of course, in the context of data skills? We noticed too low importance of digitalization in personal development among students, but also among academic staff. We also think that the problem lies in insufficient data skills by academic staff and students who actually are potential representatives of the future entrepreneurial community. We also noticed too little knowledge about digitalization process among students, which actually translates into lowering the competitiveness of the national economy in the future. Also, lack of defined key data skills is also an obstacle for further professional development. And the large information amount available, there is a lack of time to search for important selected information that would allow the training of data skills and professional development. And some facts, numbers. The methodology that was used in our research was a quantitative survey, and the institutions participating in the project distributed the questionnaire. It was an electronic questionnaire that reached academic staff and students. So the total number of respondents is 469 people. This is 276 students and 193 academic staff. I think it's quite impressive that we have managed to conduct this survey among 19 European countries. Okay, so the main results of the quantitative survey are as follows. As far as data skills are concerned, we have almost, well, 60% of students declared that they have data skills, and 47% of academic staff also declared that they have bad data skills. This is a really interesting result. Data governance. In this respect, 57% of academic staff declared that they have bad data skills in this area, and 63% of students also have bad data skills. Among academic staff, 49% of people declare problems related to security, and 45% of students declare problems with security skills. Searching for information, about 80% of respondents from the group of students declared very good skills. So searching for information is quite easy for our respondents. As software skills, students declared 77% good skills in this respect, and academic staff only declared their skills in 59%. Online software usability, As for the skills related to this online software usability, 74% of students and 73% of academic staff declared good skills in this area. Software usability for learning or teaching purpose, 53% of students declared good skills, and yes, and 58 of academics declared good skills in this area. Just a second. We also identified problems in current teaching system. Yes, that the main problem is the lack of specialist knowledge, lack of trainings, lack of time, access to high quality data. Also, lack of collaboration is important factor, and no regulations on the use of data. It was the problems identified or pointed by academic staff and students. I would like to also present you selected recommendations which are presented in the Generation Data Toolkit. Of course, I recommend you to visit our website, generationdata.eu, and read the toolkit. You can download the file. You have all detailed information there. Well, some of the recommendations could be exchange of experience among academic teachers, development of standards, so to create probably a catalog of competencies of or evaluation, and the monitoring of teaching on managing data, support of development of innovative methods of teaching, external monitoring and evaluation of activities, collecting and sharing resources, including educational resources as part of ongoing projects, and conducting information, education, and dissemination activities. This is what we are doing right now. Of course, it is highly recommended not to enter too many theory, but to focus on case studies and on practice. And I think that our course meets these recommendations. And creation of an effective lifelong term implementation, implementation plan, and all regulatory changes in the scope of management of data. Well, thank you for your attention. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask questions by typing them. I'll do my best to answer. So if you have any other questions, you can always contact me via email anytime. So thank you very much.
Brilliant. We had one question while you were speaking, Joanna, just in terms of whether the presentations are available afterwards. So yes, they will be sent in a zip email file to everybody that's registered. Okay, great.
So if that's okay, then we'll just keep going and we'll move on to the next speaker, and that is Dr. Owen Fury, who's a lecturer in the Kenny Institute of Technology. And his title of this talk is going to be The Truth About Data. So maybe, Owen, you could give a little introduction to yourself and take it away.
Yeah, no bother. Well, hello, everybody. I say, as Pardy was saying, I'm Dr. Owen Fury. I'm a lecturer in computing primarily, but also teaching machine learning and privacy and security and cloud computing and some of these things that hopefully a lot of people looking at Generation Data will have heard something about, but would like to learn a little bit more about. And it's an interesting project, this, because it actually tries to make some of the real complex stuff more understandable. Okay, and there's a lot of jargon out there as well. But as well as there being a lot of jargon, there's also, and this is what I'm going to talk about today, I titled it, The Truth About Data, but I just want to, there's some things to watch out for, okay? And there's a lot of hype, and particularly over this last few weeks, I think everyone sitting at home has become somewhat of an expert at looking at graphs and seeing how graphs can be flattened and what's happening with curves and things like that. And there's an awful lot of information going through. But I'll give you some things to watch out for, some things to be careful of, and hopefully it'll make some sense. And I've done a little bit of it lighthearted a bit because the world's sitting at home, so I'm trying to brighten things up a little bit. So I'll see if I can share my own screen here and make this work. Right, so bear with me. Right, so we have it.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's good.
Yeah, that's not great because it's the last slide. Well, don't worry. We have our technical difficulties here as well. There we go. Right, can you see the truth about data?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Right, so lot of things to watch out for. Okay, lot of misconceptions out there, and then these are used a lot. They're used a lot to convince people of varying different things. The media use them, marketers use them a lot, but for you as consumers, or particularly as people who are learning to teach a bit about data analytics, there's a couple of things to watch out for. Data analytics is very, very powerful. Okay, it can do a lot of stuff, and a lot of the fantastic stuff you hear about happening in the realms of AI and machine learning by companies like Google and that, they have huge teams, and there's a lot of things. Just when you're looking at it, question it. Okay, as I go through this, hopefully some of these points will stick with you. Okay, so the first notion, see this nice picture here and all these graphs, and it gives people a sore head, and people go, I don't want to go anywhere near data analytics, this stuff is horrible. But actually it's powerful when used properly. Okay, now that's the key. The key is to getting this stuff done right, and it can lend yourself to informed decision making. Okay, so if you're deciding to make some business or some decision, whether it's for your business or whatever you're trying to do, you want the right data. And this notion of being informed, what does it mean to be informed? Okay, so you can be informed in many different ways, but you want something, particularly if you're from a business background, you want something that'll be useful or profitable for you. Okay, it doesn't just mean using what we call an evidence base, just saying, well, here's an example of this. Now, some of you may have background in sales or marketing, and you know what clever people can do. Clever people will convince you of a lot of different things by waving statistics and numbers at you. People go, oh, that's great, I must do this. Now, it's often not quite that straightforward. But it means understanding what evidence you're using, what data it's based on, okay, how that data was gathered, and where it might fall short. Okay, and this is some of the things to think about. Now, I'm not putting you off data analytics, but it's important to go in with your eyes open, okay, to know the different types of things that may be there, because there's a lot of things, and the misconceptions about these are used, and maybe you want to use them in your own company too, but they can be used. So one of the first things I'm going to start off with is this notion about the sample versus the population. Okay, so a lot of these things come from maybe what we would call generally statistics. Okay, but statistics and data analytics and machine learning and AI, they are all different things, but there's an awful lot of overlap between them. Okay, so as this little picture goes, talking about your samples, so where are you getting your data from? Okay, so if you gather up some stuff that's just from a small group, is that applicable if you want to go into a new market or you want to try somewhere else? Probably not. Okay, as this small cartoon shows, if your sample is really small, so in this case they're saying, you've both got brown eyes, so 100% of the US population is brown eyes. Okay, now that's your sample. My sample says yes, 100% have, so therefore I can go and assume everyone has brown eyes. Not quite that simple, because you're only sampling a very small portion. So with the population is everyone, the sample is the data that you have. Now, a couple of problems with that, you have to make sure that the data that you are using is representative. Okay, it doesn't represent everyone. So if you're doing this for business, it doesn't represent your customers. There's no point in just surveying just a few of them and then saying, oh yeah, we go and change your complete product line because these few people want it. That won't work. Okay, the data that you use and whatever type of data analytics has been done, it's based on pre-existing data usually. And if this data is not representative, then you're going to have some problems. Okay, because you could decide to launch a new product or do something, change your direction. And if you're only basing it on a small number, that's a problem. An even bigger problem than this, and this is used all the time, is use of anecdotal evidence. Okay, So I know a customer and they wanted this, so therefore we should do this. Okay, that's a customer. Maybe it's two customers. Media use this all the time. Politicians use it all the time. They convince people and go, I bet you know someone who's like this, and people start to identify, go, yeah, I know, but it's not representative. And if you're making a decision, and if you're using data analytics for a business, you have to be aware, because this is going to cost money. Okay, and if you make the wrong decision, it could be costly. Okay, or if nothing else, at least a waste of time. So the difference between population and sample is important. And you see a lot of statistics thrown out there and says, this represents this. Always ask, where is it coming from? Where did the data come from? So what I want to get you out of this, I actually want to make you a little bit cynical about data, because one of the major things you need to do in data analytics is question your data all the time. Make questions and be, so that when you get to the end, you've asked the questions and you don't go and spend something or run something on and then find out that it wasn't exactly as you thought. The population sample is one. Then this notion of bias in your data, okay? And following on from that, confirmation bias. So bias in your data is if your data is the data where it comes from. So say you've got a recruitment company, okay? And the recruitment company is creating a nice automated algorithm to select CVs or resumes. Then if their data, the previous data that they've looked at, if that was based on the way the company previously hired, okay. But maybe the company only ever hired, I don't know, white men, for example. Then the algorithm or whatever type of analytics you use is going to tell it only to hire white men. So this can be used all over the place. This is used all over the place. And one of the things is bias is a big problem in analytics. There might be bias in your algorithm, but getting rid of all bias is maybe not brilliant either, because as people, we are kind of biased. You know, everyone's kind of biased. So maybe you need a certain amount for it to be useful. A follow on from that is, as the little diagram there is showing, is this notion of confirmation bias. Okay, when you're looking at algorithms now, and this idea on your phone, and our phones are fantastic devices and computers, but they largely give us what we want to hear. Okay, and you can filter through stuff, okay, but if you're looking for something and you want to say, for example, I don't know, that, you know, pick something that's completely off. You say that 99% of cars are pink. You're not going to find that if you Google that. But if you keep searching down and down and down and down, you'll eventually find someone says that a lot of cars are pink, and you go, haha, I knew. But that's not that simple, because you've just found what you wanted. So you've confirmed your own bias that was already there. So when you're creating any kind of data analytics, again, you have to watch out for that. Be very careful of finding what you want, because you go through and run an algorithm, then it comes out with what you want, and go, yes, that's it, I knew it. Question it. Again, it needs to be questioned, because have you got bias in it already? Now, maybe the bias is appropriate. Maybe the bias, not all bias is necessarily bad. Bias might be that I know that these type of customers will buy this thing, so therefore you're biased towards them. Well, maybe that's useful, but it is something that has to be considered. And this notion of confirmation bias, and the large companies, the Googles, Facebooks, Amazons, they do this. They play on your bias and they give you back what you want, because you're more likely to buy stuff if it all agrees with you. So just, again, being wary on that one. Next one we've got up is this one about what's known as correlation and causation. Okay, now there's a little diagram there, a little graph, which I just found this off the internet. Someone had made it up. Okay, but it basically says that, you know, you see one graph, and the graph on the red shows the number of people drowning in swimming pools, and then the black shows the number of films that Nicolas Cage was in. And you can see there's a definite relationship. The graph's definitely going up the same way. So does that mean people are drowning in swimming pools because Nicolas Cage is making more films? No, of course it doesn't. But what that does show is it shows that there appears to be some kind of correlation. That's some kind of link in the data and the trends as they're going up and down. But a very important thing in any kind of analytics, and this is the same in machine learning, is that correlation does not imply causation. Okay, because there's a link doesn't mean that one caused the other. Okay, and a lot of people mix this up, and clever people can make this argument and they can convince people. And marketers are often clever people. You know, the media, politicians, their job is to make links and to get people to do what they want. So these type of things are often used. Now, this is an extreme example. Obviously, we all know, looking at that, that's not true. Okay, but what you can see is how links can be made And be careful again, this comes back to the one before. If you see a link to something that you want to be there, then you might jump on it. And this data might be used and people would say, okay, this data works, so we have to use it and act on it and go forward. Can be dangerous, can be a dangerous thing to be moving forward. So be careful of your correlations. You look for the correlations that you want to find. And if you're there, then probably question them again. The only way you can really find causation, which is that one thing caused another thing, is what they call by a large randomized experiment, or something, a very large experiment where you're taking out all the bias. And this is why big studies take a long time. Okay. Now, what you can often find is there might often be correlations that maybe experts know. So if you're trying to do some data analytics and it's your business and you sell, I don't know, farm machinery, you may know that there's a link between certain things. Maybe certain things have been sold at a certain time of the year. That might seem obvious to you. An algorithm may find it, and maybe this is something that you might see, maybe there's different trends in there. So those things can be okay, but is one causing the other? Be careful, be wary. And then one of the things with any kind of analytics too is you need to talk to people who understand the data you're looking at. I can look at data, just as someone, you know, as a computer scientist, but I don't necessarily know what's happening in your areas. And the same with people you hire. You're probably the expert, or if you're not the expert, find someone who is an expert in your type of data, because there can be different things happening there as well with it. So correlation and causation. Be wary of the links and of the fantastic correlation. Go, haha, we'll do this. Okay. Now, moving on. There's another little cartoon there. It's kind of saying there's a lot of jokes in data analytics about the type of data goes through. Okay. This guy is saying, you know, you need a dashboard application to track your metrics. So something nice that shows you all your graphs. This way you'll have more data to ignore when you make decisions based on your company politics. Okay, so even if the data was pointing one way, maybe your company politics is going to do, and you can cherry pick what data they want. The man saying, will the data be accurate? And say, well, does that matter? Okay, so this is the thing, and data is used a lot. And particularly if you see some politician throwing some graphs at you, you know rightly they're using it for their own purposes. Again, you see some marketing company doing it, they're showing you the data that they want you to see to convince you to do something. Okay, doesn't mean that it's wrong, but it may not be the whole picture. So that's some of the things to watch out for. You know, there can be other stuff there. So be wary when you're only showing one bit. Okay, now this again is relevant, and I'll get to the current data deluge that we're in at the moment. But along with this, you've got this idea of dirty data. Okay, so basically data that's incomplete. Maybe there's missing. So maybe you want data on all the houses in an estate. But what if you only get half of them? Can you, is that representative? Have you got everybody? Or maybe some of it's incomplete, or maybe it's just rubbish. Maybe it's just wrong. Maybe somebody made it up and sold it to you. You know, it's really hard to know what exactly you have, but with any kind of analytics, if you put in data that's not good, you're going to get out analytics that aren't good as well. Okay, this is important to watch out for, because, you know, garbage in equals garbage out, as the Americans would kind of say. So you need to be aware what's gone on. Okay, right. So garbage in, garbage out. Then yes, so beware of statistics and fancy graphs. Okay, now this is one thing. This is again another little cartoon, and man saying, you know, I can prove or disprove it. What do you want me to do? And this is a reality. And as an academic, we actually learn how to kind of do that. We can present it in whatever way we want. Now, it's not that I'm not saying academics are doing this on purpose, but we are supposed to look at both sides, and depending who you want to present them for, and this is what marketers will do. Marketers or people using it will possibly present one way or the other. So you have to be careful with the numbers that are presented out, and also who's presenting them. It's back to in academia, you know, when students are writing something and they're supposed to consult what we call peer-reviewed sources, so maybe journals or conferences. The idea is that the information in those should be unbiased or should be independent. Okay, you might find something brilliant came out from IBM in a white paper, but that's IBM's own idea. They're going to have their own spin on it. So whatever it is, beware. Be wary and take every little statistic you see with a little grain of salt, okay, and say, you know, what does that mean? Why would this person be showing this for the wrong reason? And particularly with so much data coming through now, you should question it. And I would very much say question it from the major national news sources as well, because they also want you to do certain things. Okay, so as a follow on from that, this guy here, it's not a very nice picture of him, but maybe he wasn't a very nice guy, I don't know. Winston Churchill apparently said, and I looked this up, I've heard this a few times and apparently didn't say it, but it's a good quote anyway, says that he didn't believe any statistics that he didn't make himself. Okay, so if you think about that, any statistics that are coming out, you could, they can be pitched a particular way. So be wary, and particularly if you're using this in some kind of business and a different company has given you their data, okay, maybe it's done for a particular type of reason, okay? Back to this notion of, lies and statistics, what the untruths in the world. It's hard to know. It's hard to know when these things change so much, and statistical analysis is hard, okay? Hardcore machine learning, data analytics is difficult to get right. It doesn't mean it can't be used. It can be used and it can be very, very powerful, but it requires a number of things to get it right. So we need to be wary, just making sure that the right things are in there. Okay, so in this case, Winston made a good point. Okay, next one up. See, I'm using pictures today because nobody wants anything else. Nobody wants loads of text when they're sitting at home. But this notion from Einstein, again, everything gets quoted to Einstein. I don't know if he said it, but it's a very good point. Be an hour to solve a problem and his life depended on it. Use the first 55 minutes determining the proper question to ask. And this is a major thing in data analytics. What question are you asking? Are you asking the right question? This notion of saying, we have a load of information, let's just run some algorithms and hopefully the world will be better after and we'll get great stuff. No, you have to ask specific things of your data. You have to go to your data and say, I want this particular change in rate, I want this market increase at this particular time, and see, is there information that will give an indication towards us? Give an indication, won't say it's exact. But often what this is used is for some kind of prediction. But are you trying to predict the right thing? You might be predicting an increase in one area, and be careful if you go to use that as an increase in another, because maybe they're not linked. There's another line from, I think it's Niels Bohr, the physicist, said that prediction is very hard, especially when it's about the future. Okay, so it's hard to do these things. Now, it doesn't mean it doesn't work. Okay, these things can work, yes, but it's just things to be aware of when you go in, and be wary of, fast talking salespeople who tell you, oh, we will definitely do this and definitely do that. So just be wary. And then with your own data, or if you're going to get some data analytics for your own company done, just make sure what questions are being asked. Because people will come and go, yes, we found this, this, and this, but was that what you were looking for? Is that what you need? And you probably, if this is from a business point of view, you probably understand your own business better. Okay, you understand it better than somebody coming in from outside. So it's important to keep control of these things. What exactly is being asked, and what do you want with it? Moving on from Einstein, it's like no picture, but this is an important one. Okay, and again, I'm not a business person. Okay, but in a business, if you're going to use some analytics, you need a kind of business case, right? There needs to be a reason of what you're doing. You need some kind of niche in your market. You need to define what your product is, find out if it'd be successful and possible to create, and then maybe use some technology to find specific bits in between. So there's still a lot more. Analytics is not the silver bullet that fixes the world. Okay, it can help. It can definitely help if you've got good data and they're like people who understand it right. But there's still some things to understand. And it's important to have a plan right the way through what you're going to do with this, and not just one part of the plan, not just we get a whole lot of data and we make money. Okay, it's not that simple. So I don't know if this will, I'm going to try and play a small YouTube clip here. And this is just, it's a little bit tongue in cheek, but trying to give you some points of what it means about the different stages you need. If you're going into business, you need to have the varying differences of data, get your data, plan some analytics, find your KPIs, where's it going. So let's run this. If this runs, let's see, we have YouTube, we have a video, it's only 30 seconds.
This is where all our work is done. So what are you going to do with all these underpants that you steal? Collecting underpants is just phase one. Phase one, collect underpants. So what's phase two? Hey, what's phase two? Phase one, we collect underpants. Yeah, but what about phase two? Well, phase three is profit. Get it? I don't get it. You see, phase one, collect underpants. Phase two, phase three, profit. Oh, I get it.
Okay, if I can stop this and get rid of it. How do I get rid of that? Let me get back to my slides.
That didn't actually show up. That didn't actually show up.
Did it not?
It was okay.
All right,
fine.
must have been embedded anyway. It was trying to get back to my slides. Sorry, where am I going? Second, did I kill it? There, slideshow. Okay, well, what it was anyway, it was a short clip from South Park, but basically the idea about how stupid it is to just have a part of a plan just to get data and not to do anything with it. So, not to worry that it didn't play, but it's the different parts of this, and it's why you need different elements of a team to actually do data analytics. Okay, you need business people, you need people who understand numbers, you need people who understand data, you need people who can talk to customers and what customers really want. There's a lot of different elements with it. Okay, so moving on from that one, should you hire a data analyst, someone actually to work with you? Okay, possibly yes, if you run the company and you can afford it, is one. But what do data analysts actually do, and who are they? And this graph, this little image shows what people think you do, and some people think they're like the guy Dr. what is it, Emmett Brown at Back to the Future. Some people think we're just monkeys typing away. Some of the data analysts and some of the programmers think they're in the matrix the whole time. This is reality. People really think they're in there, but maybe they're just sitting there playing around. But they should have a different understanding of numbers and should be able to help you do some stuff. But again, if you're going to do some of these things, make sure that you have an idea what you want to do before you go into them. Okay, you know what you actually want from your data. Maybe there's a point to get a bit of help. And it can be, because getting it right, it's not impossible, but there are times, some of it you can do yourself. Some of it you can use some of the data analytics tools in the cloud or some software as a service analytics. Some of these can be quite good. Maybe you need somebody else, but don't employ them if you don't really know what you want them to do. Okay, and be wary when you're going in. Don't give them an impossible task either. Don't ask them to get fantastic analytics if they haven't even got the data to do it. And also if they don't know what questions they're asking. So the things that I was talking about before. Moving on, I'll just end on a few little points to do this because we're packed with coronavirus all over the place. Well, we're not packed with it, we're packed with news about it. It's a real viral information overflow. All the information is constantly about it. People are sitting there all day, every day, thinking about it. It's nearly become like it sounds really bad, but guessing the lottery numbers in the evening to see how many are going to be infected or new cases are coming up. But there's an interesting article there, and it's talking about, why are some people much more afraid than others? Okay, and a lot of this is about people's own opinions and how they will react to data. So if you're trying to use some data to improve marketing, it depends what pressure points that people will go for. Now, obviously, some people maybe are a little bit more unwell. But with any of these numbers coming through, there's a thing that statisticians and all call uncertainty. Okay, and uncertainty is linked to risk. And the thing is that you may get some statistics that are way off. Okay, they seem to be all right at the day, and then a couple of days later, people go, no, that doesn't make any sense anymore. And they go, well, there's a problem with our initial data. So it's basically to question all the types of information that come through, and particularly now. I'm not saying we shouldn't go out and we shouldn't follow the guidelines, but at the same time, I would be skeptical of an awful lot of the numbers that are coming out, because the numbers are made to do a few things. And if you think about this, what does the government want us to do? It wants us to stay in the house. Okay, so one way to make people stay in the house is to scare them. Okay, scare them into staying in the house. Now, maybe there is reasons to be scared, and I'm not saying there's not. I'm not an epidemiologist. I'm not, an expert on health or anything. But I do understand the way data is used, okay, often. So if you take from this and we go down to this nice, you may have seen this one from Johns Hopkins University. They've quite good dashboard, okay? And the dashboard shows us, varying different things that are happening, around the world. One of the interesting things to notice about that is, notice the color of the circles? The colors of the circles are red, and they're red on purpose. They're red to make us think of, it's like big drops of blood appearing all over the place. It's big infectious stuff appearing over and back, and they're getting bigger. And psychologically, there's an awful lot of psychology in data analytics and how these things are presented to make us think that, oh, these things are coming for us. Maybe they are coming for us, but we have to keep everything in perspective. Basically, there's a certain amount of things, and you go, oh, look, those big massive plots in America. Well, we're not in America, and maybe we have in other countries yet, but to be wary. And this is some good stuff. And one interesting thing, I try and look for positives in a lot of stuff, is that a lot of people have somehow learned to look at data and they've seen different trends and things. But there's a few interesting ones with this, things like fatality rate versus case fatality rate. How many people actually went to this hospital and then die compared to everyone in the general population who died. And these are not the same things, okay? These are not the same things. These numbers are different, and different ones are pitched different ways, okay? So I would just say with all of this stuff, obviously I would like everyone to take care of themselves, but we should be wary. We should always question whatever data is there. And even if it's coming from these things, it doesn't mean we have to go out and take chances, but it means we should be critical. Because if you're working with your data for your own company, you want to be the biggest critic of your own data, because that's the decisions you're going to make are going to cost your business money. And if you go out with stuff that just says, it looks all right, let's go and do it, let's spend money, maybe not a great idea. Question your data, and when you come, you have to make a decision at some stage to do something, but at some point you'll have to try and hope that you've asked all the questions you want yourself. Maybe a data analyst will help you. Maybe some other expert within other business can help you. You can talk to other people. But if you're going to base something on data analytics, if you're going to cause big changes in your company or completely new markets you're going to move into, then make sure you have thought about it and make sure you've questioned things that are out there. So I would kind of like people to be a little bit more cynical, not cynical completely, but just be wary of data. Be wary of it. It's not fantastic. There are really, really good things can be done with it. They require expertise, and they're getting better, and they're getting clever. The algorithms are getting clever and clever, but there's things to watch out for and things to just be wary. Okay, be wary as the stuff's coming through. Also, they would say with these things, be careful of the sources where they're coming from. Personally, I would question all the sources. You take some things, and I had one of my master's students doing a project, and he was basically analyzing, it was in the fake news type of area, he was analyzing the same report coming out from BBC, coming out from CNN, coming out from Russia Today, coming out from Al Jazeera, talking about the same event, and they're all giving different reports. And that says not just one of them is lying, that says a number of them are lying, or a number at least slanting it, okay? So just be wary with data, okay? Data can be very, very powerful when used right, but there's an awful lot of people are manipulating figures for their own benefit. Question your data, find out if it's useful. If you want to do something, by all means inform it, but consider these questions that I have hopefully raised and hopefully giving you something to think about going forward. And I think that is about me. So as we say in Irish, that is Gormaya, it means thank you. And if you have any questions, you can send them through, and I'm happy to try and answer them as best I can. Okay.
Oh, I think there's a question just coming here. Do you have any top tips on oh, I think I missed that. Did you see that? Did you get that question, Orla? Did you?
Questions going away.
Any top tips on how you go about analyzing data, I think?
Top tips to
When it
analyze
comes to
data.
questioning, yes.
When it comes to questioning data.
Yeah, well, when questioning data, the number of things is obviously, where's the source from? Okay. Also, I would say, and you have to be a bit careful of this, but who is presenting it, and whether they have any particular reason for presenting it in a particular way? Okay. Is there possibly profit to them? Now, I'm not saying that makes it wrong, but it could be something to question about it. Also decide if you see what data analytics, large scale data analytics can be very expensive for personnel and for computational power and different things. So there might often be a process where you go and use some form of analytics as a service, some kind of cloud service or some kind of software as a service, some other company to do it. They will probably have more data than you, and they can help analyze your stuff a bit better. Now, I know a lot of businesses do this already, but still, even with what they're doing, I would ask them questions where did this come from? Again, you will be wary of anyone who gives you the kind of, the Star Wars, that doesn't matter type of approach, just waves at you and it's okay. Those are the people I would definitely question. Why are you saying that? Make them answer it. If you're going to employ these people or pay them some money, they should be able to answer your questions and they should be able to satisfy you. And if you're not satisfied, I wouldn't go forward with it.
Oh, there's a number of comments coming in as well, but can I just add one thing to your presentation and you can comment on it?
Yeah.
A lot of one of the challenges around data for a lot of small businesses is actually getting access to it. It's not a question that they don't have, it's difficult to get access to it. What do you think about that?
Yeah, well, that's the thing. And this is why there are a lot of, movements towards what we call open data, open data and sharing data. And there's a number of different organizations that are involved in this. I know Airnext, one that works closely with us, are involved in trying to promote open data in a number of different areas for energy data, energy usage. And again, there's a lot of different movements of that. See, a lot of data, if you think about it, data is the reason that the most valuable companies in the world are the most valuable companies in the world, because they manage people's data and they sell it all the time. They sell data on us all. But there's a lot of good movements and people should share it. And a lot of different organizations have their own data and will move forward. Now, it depends. People are in competition. Maybe they don't want to give it all away, but you can find similar things. And this is one of the nice things about projects like this. You can find case studies in a different country that can apply to yours. And maybe all is not exactly the same, but if you find data from one country, then you can share it and you can hopefully move forward and model and work on something that they've done elsewhere and try and use that for your own benefit in your own country.
One other question there, and we'll move on. Do you have any tips for reducing confirmation bias?
Just for a start, first thing is be honest with yourself about what your own confirmation bias is. Rather than sitting and going, "Oh, I don't really," I would actually write down, what do I want it to look like, and what might it look like, and then just be careful when it comes through. And we do this the same. If I'm conducting an experiment and comes out first, you go delighted if it looks like what you want. But at the same time, you have to go, maybe it's not. You should run it again and again. It depends what way. You're just doing a small pilot, that's okay. But if you're going to roll this out in a big way, it's going to cost you money. Question it and get other people to question it. Get other people who will be honest with you and direct with you to question it. Not just, you don't want to ask your employees, does that look good? And they go, oh yeah, that looks great. You want people who will tell you if it doesn't look good. Okay, so you want the direct, brutal honesty before you go further.
Oh, listen, thanks very much. There probably is a number of other questions there, but we might get back to them again. It's just time's pushing on. So
no problem.
Thank you, Owen.
Thank you. Thanks very much, everybody.
If it's okay, I'm just going to ask maybe Éanna O'Murrough now, who's a technologist in Condoin Galway, and she's probably going to just give us a little bit more looking towards the future and some foresight into what faces us all in dealing with data coming down the line. So Éanna, if you're on there, could you maybe do a little introduction and the presentation is the future of data.
Okay, thanks very much, Warwick. It's great to be here today. So to share, this opportunity to talk about some future trends in technology. And I have no doubt that they'll somehow affect our lives given what's currently happening. We can see right now, we're all working from home. There's been a massive change in our economy, and our economy's come to a sudden halt because of this pandemic. And I'm guessing that, well, it's more an educated sense of knowing where the data is going, like what Owen was saying there. You be able to question your data, but where we're going into is a future that's driven by machines. Unfortunately, a lot of low-level jobs have disappeared, and I think a lot of people are going to create an incredible amount of things online, through the online world and in the online space. But I have a number of YouTube videos lined up because the technology on the topics are a little bit more complicated rather than sort of talking about data directly, because I'll be talking about topics like cryptocurrencies and decentralization. personally, I believe that the future of data is decentralization. I come from, my background is in Web 3.0. It was easy enough to see how it was, as Owen was saying, about knowing, you know, trying to get access to your data. Data has become centralized. And with the centralization of data, it means it's not so much the data itself, it's about what you do with clean data, what you can do. What you can do is you can actually predict things. So given this the short time slot that I have, I just want to go, I'm going to go through the topics of decentralization, a new way to, I suppose, I look at new business models, which are the future of work in one way. And also I'll be talking about the DAO, the decentralized autonomous organizations, and the DAO stack. So I'm just going to open my presentation here, and I'm just going to share my screen out. Okay. So I think with this topic, I'm trying to just move stuff here before I start. Okay, so can you see my screen?
Yes, yeah.
Okay, so I think that following a halt in the economy, we can expect a massive shift, right? I think the main topics will be climate change, financial crisis, and technological disruption. They're the trilemma of the 21st century. At the heart of all of this is statism. So I'm going to begin my talk with decentralization, because coming from a background of Web 3.0, Web 3.0 was actually the original plan for the internet as such. It was invented by Sir Tim Berners-Lee, and his idea was to have the web as a decentralized format with data and being able to use data. And it was as in a peer-to-peer network where no central entity had access or monopoly over the data. So when an organization has access to the data, they can control things, as Owen was saying, with data. And data encryption also will ensure that information that's accessible only to a certain permitted number of people. I'm going to play this video because it'll give you an introduction into the topic of decentralization and understanding it a bit better.
The internet is broke. Don't worry, you can still connect to the internet, browse around, send email. All the technical aspects work just fine. It's what us as users have to give up in order to access the internet. That's the problem. Popular websites have proven that they will treat profit over protecting your privacy, as they're ready to sell your data to the highest bidder without even thinking twice. The honest truth is that we've just become accustomed to the suckiness because we don't know that there's a better option, that we haven't really unlocked the true potential of what the internet could be. However, a new internet is being formed and it's being built around the principle of decentralization. In order to better understand exactly what decentralization is and how it can benefit us, let's look at the issues with the current status quo of the internet. Centralized networks can be defined as networks where communications, informations, and data must enter into and leave through a central hub. That central hub is often in the form of private servers. This framework has led to a technically efficient internet, but it's also one that is always dependent on users sacrificing their privacy and personal information. If you want to access social media platforms like Facebook and Twitter, well, you're signing an agreement that essentially allows them to sell your information to third parties, as well as user content. But it's not just the internet that has centralized entities. They're everywhere. Governments, banks, and internet service providers have all shown that they will do anything to stay in control of your information. They don't want to lose an asset that they have had for so long. What does centralization do? Well, all these entities controlling information leads to a lack of power for the individual or consumer. Information that we give up to these centralized powers often ends up getting sold or is compromised by hacks, which can lead to the very severe problem of identity theft. Call for increased tangible decentralization did not really gain any steam until after the 2008 financial crisis, when a person or persons under the pseudonym of Satoshi Nakamoto published a white paper that first introduced blockchain technology. That also encompasses the principle of decentralization. That's what blockchain is built upon. A decentralized network differs greatly from a centralized one, because instead of one server, one party being in charge of all that data, all that information, decentralized networks operate on a peer-to-peer basis where the user's computers communicate and interact directly without the use of an intermediary. By operating on a peer-to-peer basis, personal information is not shared, as a third party never has access to that information because you're just working from point A to point B. Just simply isn't needed. It essentially cuts out the middleman by letting you bypass their involvement because you're working directly with another user. The benefits of decentralization are numerous. It allows you significantly more privacy and allows you to maintain your identity and reputation without worrying what the third party is going to do with it. Cutting out the middleman also saves the producer and consumer money. And the most important thing that decentralization can provide is freedom. The freedom to use an internet without the caveat having to give up your personal information that can fall into the wrong hands. Now, it's important to understand that the internet has a long way to go before it becomes completely decentralized. But it's undeniable that this trend is already started. And that's our video on the principle of decentralization. It's a new concept. Any questions or comments, throw those down below in the comments.
So as you said, it's a relatively new concept, but it's one that's also become incredibly hyped up. And it's almost overhyped with the whole notion of the blockchain, and the blockchain is going to solve all the world's problems. And I think there's a big issue around the complexity, and also not even so much the complexity of the blockchain itself, but it's more the regulation, especially in the area of payments and finance itself. So to break down about payments and the area of finance, it's not just about Bitcoin, it's about the regulation and the social aspect, also the economics and the operations and the technology itself. So the politics and regulation, there's a massive, I suppose, how could you put it? The lack of control that organizations, all organizations that we have right now, they're for the traditional our traditional economy. They worked quite well because they were centralized. But technology, in a way, because it's so scalable, we need a scalable form of politics, of organization for companies, and also with finance. But also this means that these organizations would end up losing control. And also when I'm going to speak about a little thing called the DAO. And it's a complete different approach to organizational structure. But virtual currencies themselves, there's over 5,000 of them now. They have to be regulated. There's a need to regulate. So what's happened is because things have sped up so quickly, and in the area of innovation, you cannot pull stuff back. So the banks have moved ahead, but they've collaborated with the technology. So you're going to have these new collaborations coming all the time in the area of innovation, but they still have to be regulated. Otherwise, a lot of fraud can come in, which we've seen in the blockchain sector, and we've seen with the area of crypto finance. Payments are moving center stage, and nations themselves are going to launch their own digital currencies to retain control of economic policy. And I think China has right now their own cryptocurrency. Whether each nation will go to have its own cryptocurrency, that each country will have to decide upon itself whether it's going to be suitable or not for their economy. But the economics of payments are going to change, and payment value chain is going to be built, and they'll have to reach international consensus on data around the area of data privacy. But everything is going to move towards a social network, and almost every global citizen, I don't like to predict stuff, but that's a part of my area is as an early adopter to know what's coming on the next wave. But I truly believe that almost every citizen, global citizen, will have their own biometrically enabled digital ID. And payments are going to definitely drive down financial exclusion. They will open up to everybody. But I definitely see social experience that we have with the platform economy, which is essentially a Web 2.0. They're Web 2.0 technologies that are driving everything. Blockchain is bringing it into Web 3. The blockchain is the decentralized web, which is Web 3.0. Distributed ledger technologies, which are used in the blockchain, they're not a new thing at all. They've been around forever. They've just become digitized. But they'll underpin a global, connected, high-speed network of payments. And then real-time payments can be expected to become the norm, even for cross-border payments and transactions. So payment ecosystems as well will evolve from collaboration between all the new entrants and also the old players. And the technology, what we're going to see the constant innovation. It's not going to stop at where it is now as things merge together. But there are new business models emerging, and these are the ones that I've had a look at. So the future business model ones are the crowd economy. And this is what the crowd economy is a type of crowdsourcing and crowdfunding that we know about already. We're used to it. Within the blockchain itself, there was something called an ICO offering, initial coin offering, and this actually caused a huge amount of fraud as people pushed their. There was a lot of great projects also mixed up in it. It's not all bad, but there was a number of projects that were fraudulent. So a lot of leveraged assets will be used in this crowd economy business model. And staff on demand, which essentially be all the developments of leveraging the billions of people that are online and are about to come online in developing nations. Then we look at the free or data economy. This is a platform version of sort of the bait and hook model, essentially baiting the customer in with free access to a cool service and then making money off data and that's been gathered around the customer. It can be considered part of the big data revolution, and it's going to allow innovators to exploit micro demographics like never before. Then we're going to have a thing called smartness economy. So there's a lot of talk about AI, but AI will basically become like electricity. It'll just be there, and it's actually it'll be taking. So AI in itself is a level of smartness. But we'll be able to take other sort of smart layers like smartphones and the way smartphones were phones before that. This is the level of technology, and we'll be able to use other tools to, like stereo speakers, for example, have become smart speakers and smart home devices inside in homes, and cars will become autonomous vehicles. It's a digitization of everything. Closed loop economies, right, are something that we can compare to how nature itself doesn't waste a thing. And human beings, they attempt to mimic waste-free systems that are used in nature. And this is called biomimicry. These sort of models will become increasingly prevalent with the rise of environmentally conscious consumer. This ties back in with the climate and with the environment. Consumer shaming is going to become a huge trend in the future, as people will question the where the company's coming from, where they hire people from. And this ties into supply chains. And on the blockchain, supply chains, everything can be tracked. I will show a video of this so you'll be able to see how the network, whether people are paying their laborers correctly and ethically. So this is going to become a massive trend. But this goes down to the last model I can see organizations head towards, because we can't keep up with the change, the technological pace of change. These organizations, they're still early stage organizations. They're called DAOs, or just decentralized autonomous organizations. Basically, they're a big player in the automated economy or the machine age or the technological age. They require a consensus, but they don't actually require, they can automate an awful lot of the process through things called smart contracts. So this is kind of the convergence of AI and blockchain technology. But the company themselves, they don't require any employees. They don't require a traditional boss. And there's non-stop production. So this is the type of company that suits our machine age. So we set up a series of pre-programmed rules within the company itself, and the company basically runs itself. It's a company without people. It can run 24/7. For example, autonomous cars can take themselves and drive themselves to the repair shop themselves on their own without any human interaction. You can program the car to do this. So the DAO stack is run by a company. I will go and have a look at their video. I'm going to play their video after this one because they're a very interesting project in the crypto blockchain space. It's a project that's a modular, they're using open source software stack for DAOs, and that includes this library of governance protocols and friendly interfaces for creating and management DAOs. They currently have a number of use cases at the moment, but it's still an early technology. So I'm just going to play this video, and then I'm going to play their video that they have for because it's extremely interesting. I really believe that this is the future collective intelligence, because you're going to get the wisdom of the crowd involved in an organization.
The world is changing rapidly, and the internet is fast entering a new technological era as Web 2.0 gives way to an emerging set of blockchain technologies. This next generation of internet technologies built on the blockchain offers many interesting new technological, economic, and social innovations, such as digital currencies, distributed ledgers, blockchain IoT systems that will transform many industries from finance and insurance to energy and cybersecurity. But probably the extraordinary thing about this next generation of the internet, built on the blockchain, is that it is, as one commentator noted, an institutional technology. At the heart of social organizations and all forms of institutions is the question of how we work together by exchanging value within a trusted environment. The blockchain is technology that enables automated trust and the automated frictionless value exchange. This capacity to automate the basic workings of social institutions, coupled with increased interconnectivity, means that we increasingly have the technological means to create massive organizations that are truly distributed and automated, something we have never seen before, and whose potential is only really limited by one's imagination. This potential of the blockchain to revolutionize human social institutions is most clearly demonstrated in what are called distributed autonomous organizations that give us a glimpse into the future. Although truly autonomous, decentralized organizations are something new, they can also be seen as just one more step in a millennia-old process of institutional evolution, a process in which we have gone from organizations based fully upon the specific characteristics of their leaders within hierarchical structures to the modern bureaucratic organization to today's platform economy, where we have moved into semi-distributed organizations, where businesses operate platforms where the rules are executed by computer code automatically. In our current platform economy that has been built on Web 2.0 technologies over the past decade, organizations are a hybrid of distributed automated platform and centralized business organization managed by people. Platforms like YouTube, Alibaba, WeChat, Upwork, or Uber represent a combination of both centralized digital platform operated by a private business and distributed user-generated systems built on the platform by hundreds of millions of users. However, things are changing fast at present, and the Web 2.0 technology that created these platforms is giving way to a new era in web technology with the rise of the blockchain. Blockchain technology offers the possibility to disintermediate these platforms by creating fully distributed systems of organization without need for a centralized organization supporting the platform. With the blockchain, we now have the technology to create truly distributed organizations at a global scale, something that we previously did not have. A decentralized autonomous organization, also called DAO, is an organization that is run by rules that are created by their members through a consensus process and then written into a set of contracts that are run via computer code, thus enabling the automated management of a distributed organization. On a more technical level, a DAO is an organization that is managed through rules encoded in smart contracts and run on the blockchain. DAOs are online platform communities with their resources organized according to rules agreed in advance and set out in its code. DAOs are an open source software capable of modification through member consensus. They are currently made possible by the development of Ethereum. Ethereum is a public blockchain which works as a decentralized virtual machine for executing peer-to-peer contracts. DAOs are essentially a set of complex smart contracts that combine to form a set of rules that manage the operations of a group of members and their resources. Distributed organizations are based on a few core principles to their design, which are ultimately trying to support a self-sustaining system of organization through local feedback loops. Instead of having formal management structures monitoring and coordinating the organization from a central point, decentralized organizations work through signaling systems, which are distributed feedback loops, as means for aligning the individual with the group. Distributed organizations tackle a problem by creating an infrastructure of cooperation done through the local interactions between members and signaling systems, which are designed to create a self-organizing system. A good example of one such signaling system would be the feedback a buyer leaves for a seller on eBay, thus creating a signal to others about the seller's trustworthiness via only peer-to-peer interaction. At the heart of these distributed organizations is the idea that groups are about value as measured by some form of a token. With distributed ledgers, we can create markets out of tokens that represent whatever value system the organization is based around. It is this value, token system, and market mechanism that are at the heart of the organization. They regulate the system and define any one person's position within the group. These distributed organizations aim to be meritocratic. That is to say, a person's position in the organization is based upon the value they have contributed, as measured by the other members that they have interacted with. Their value and corresponding reputation that they have received through their interaction with other members defines their status within the community, with all of this being encoded as tokens on the blockchain. Distributed organizations try to draw upon the intelligence of many people by drawing upon their specific local knowledge. They try to avoid situations where people become overly influenced or persuaded by any highly influential member. They try to harness a diversity of perspectives from all the members. Distributed organizations try to embody the process of evolution in their design, similar to the evolutionary process that is built into our market economy. Distributed organizations work through a process whereby members create a stock of new ideas, decisions, or initiatives, and then members essentially invest their tokens into those that they believe most viable and receive rewards if the initiative is beneficial to the organization. Thus mimicking the process of evolution, where new varieties are created and selection is performed based upon their contribution to the whole organization. Distributed autonomous organizations are very much in their infancy. They are still just experimental. Not only do we lack the actual finished software solutions, we in many ways still lack some of the basic science required to understand the full dynamics through which self-organizing social systems can work in a stable, safe, and sustainable fashion. There are many things that can go wrong with badly designed social systems. One of the first large-scale autonomous distributed organizations was recently hacked at the cost of millions of dollars. We are still in the experimental phase of trying to understand exactly all the parameters and dynamics that are needed to make a social system self-regulating and then building these into the software. This being said, a number of distributed systems for organizational management already exist, such as Backfeed or Colony being the most often cited examples. Although such systems are still experimental in nature, their potential should not be underestimated, and they will only grow as the underlying technology develops and our understanding of distributed self-organizing systems matures. The blockchain and new distributed models of governance can play a major role in providing the trust infrastructure, the platforms, and off-the-shelf organizational solutions to massive social systems, the type that would be required to develop functioning global institutions.
I just want to show also, I'm going to show the DAO Stack, this company that I know that are doing great stuff in this space. I just personally feel that this is a very strong contender for the future business of organizations, and I'm involved in this space, and I'm working on a project in this area, and I can see the massive potential that this field has. So I'm going to just come out here and show you the video of the main company that's doing most of the work in this area, DAO Stack.
For a very long period of time, we've been working as tribes, as hierarchies, and as markets. And that's how we get stuff done. For the first time, we are a truly global civilization. We are now at a point where neither markets nor hierarchies has the capacity to be able to handle the set of problems that we're facing, say climate. So at a certain point, if you can't accelerate your capacity for solving problems exponentially, you're done. We have to invent an entirely new toolkit for how human beings can coordinate their sense-making, their choice-making, and their actions, a collective intelligence. And that is precisely what DAO Stack is endeavoring to do.
From a very young age, I was driven to the relationship between complexity and simplicity, like how complex phenomena are explained by simple principles. That's what drove me into doing PhD in string theory. I was also experimenting by building an organic food cooperative and a community garden. There was this feeling that cooperation should be easy and can be easy, but there was a missing element. When I met the blockchain, instantly saw the future of how decentralized organization, how cooperative organization would look like at scale.
started with Bitcoin. And with Bitcoin, we were able to transfer value. And the next iteration was really Ethereum to enable all kind of decentralized platform. But there's definitely still a missing piece, and that is governance. How do you do that in a way without compromising on decentralization, still keeping the openness, not fall back to simple centralized decision making? That's what DAOstack is about.
The only answer that has the characteristics of a proper solution will look like a decentralized autonomous organization.
DAOstack is building the complete decentralized end-to-end tech layer for governance of large organizations. It can be a decentralized Wikipedia, but it can also be a decentralized investment fund or decentralized insurance network. DAOstack is a platform for collectives to self-organize around any shared goal, interest, or values. The first purpose of designing the DAOstack was not to build a specific protocol or a specific application, but rather to build the soil, the ground from which a whole ecosystem can thrive. There is a natural tension between scalability, scaling up the number of decisions a collective can make in a period of time, and resilience, the incorruptibility of those decisions. And we resolve that tension by inventing new collective decision-making process at scale, which we call holographic consensus, whereby small groups can take decisions on behalf of the larger majority, but in a way that guarantees a perfect alignment and coherence of the little group with the will of the greater majority. With DAOstack, you will be able to choose the best governance model template and implement it immediately using the DAOstack tech layer. That's the way this world is going to work in the future.
So many of us feel skeptical and feel worried about all the new technology that's being built. We're responsible for creating the value behind the tools we're using.
While each of us and each market and each state is trying to become more efficient and more aligned, if you look at the global scale, you're actually becoming less and less aligned with the collective well-being. I believe that with DAOstack, we'll be able to create greater alignment between the interest and the benefit of the individual and the interest and the benefit of the collective.
It will look like something that can bring everybody together in a way that our collective individual choices and actions actually build to a shared intent, a shared wisdom, and a shared capacity, and keep those things in resonance, keep them in alignment.
That's what we're about at DAOstack, bringing the power of collaboration to the people, making it accessible for all of us to work together and to really feel that we're all on this together.
So the thing with collaboration is that we operate right now with the current economy we've had up to now in a competitive, centralized manner, which will not work for an exponential, scalable, technological age. Absolutely not. So this is why this fair system, where it aims to get rid of plutocracy and give power back to the people. Of course, if you build one, you lose a certain amount of power because you're giving power to the collective if you have an organization. But what I've seen with this crisis, with this pandemic, it is the bureaucracy that I'm seeing that is actually slowing Europe down. Like, bureaucracy is centralization. It is a management hierarchy, if you want, that actually is centralized. It has to go, there's a number of people that stuff has to go through, and permission needs to be given, and it's just too difficult for things to happen right now for innovation. For example, we're developing 3D printing for innovative solutions for ventilators. Right now, a ventilator costs between 5,000 and 50,000 euros when you can build one for $100 if you 3D print one. There's no reason why these ventilators can't be made, except that there's certain standards, and you have to go through all the layers of protocol that are in the medical industry, for example. But centralization slows down innovation. As far as I can see, this decentralization doesn't. I'm just going to finish. I have one more slide that I'm going to talk about the supply chains and the blockchain itself in general. I just want to talk about the blockchain itself in general. I ran a conference in Brussels in 2018, and I saw an incredible amount of hype, and I understood enough about the complexity of the technology. There are working use cases, but they're very few and far between. Most of them being driven right now by IBM. There are working use cases in the supply management area. Supply chain management is it's a fabulous way to show, as I was explaining, just where the products come and go inside in your supply chain. So you can trace basically where the product was made, where even a part of your product was made, and its journey to you in Europe, and everything behind every part of that product and where it was, including the relationships. And as it goes through the blockchain, there's a permanent, immutable record of everything and every transaction, and it helps build trust. There are potential use cases of the blockchain, but very, very few working use cases that are being widely adopted. We will get there, but I really believe that it's a few years off yet. Cryptocurrency is going to come. I can see us using cryptocurrency maybe when we come out of this in 18 months time, or whenever we're supposed to come out of this this whole pandemic, because the virus will come and go. But I definitely feel that this whole pandemic will directly impact the way our whole economy functions as we segue into this new technological age. So that's my talk, if you have any questions.
So there's just a couple of questions there. Well, could I just ask one first? Just on these distributed, decentralized organizations for the future, I mean, it strikes me that they're very much, you know, it's difficult to identify their borders, where their boundaries are in terms of their location. And do you think there's a big challenge in the future over governance of these organizations and, you know, the taxation of them and all this type of thing?
But that's exactly, okay, so we're going to have global collaborations with everybody. And these DAO Stack is exactly that. It provides a level of governance. You give up the centralized control, and you give a decentralized form of governance. Everybody in a DAO Stack is given a voting power, and it's a meritocratic system. And every individual on the DAO Stack gets the opportunity to vote. And as users inside in the DAO Stack provide value, they're given more sort of street cred, if that's what you want to call. It's a new way to govern. It's a new way of governance for it. You're not going to have, as I said, if you have an organization that's centralized, there's a control in it, but this is for governance. This DAO Stack company, they're providing this open source use stack, and is specifically for governance of these organizations.
Okay, just we're pushing on here, so just I'll ask one other question: how to deal with the computational load of running these? They seem very computationally expensive. That's a question one of our panelists has sent.
Yeah, there would be, but again, that's the data, where the data goes, the data is hosted, the data servers. Of course they're going to be, but I don't know exactly. I don't have an answer, but I would presume that they would be data intensive for sure. But they're decentralized, so they're going to be scattered, but they'll run off all the different computers.
So a lot of comments here on a very interesting talk. There's just one more question then. Very interesting topic, raises loads of questions on meritocracy, value as token, and also the social contracts which will have to underpin such technologies. Yeah, I mean, there's a big issue there around socialization and people being able to collaborate within these type of structures. What do you think? Well,
I think collaboration is exactly what it is. It's coming together as a team. It's collaboration for the good. It's collaboration for value. It's how much you give as well.
Okay. So just for Éanna and Óndán, thanks very much for thought-provoking and insightful discussions and giving us an insight into the future, which is scary, I think. But so we're going to move on now a little bit more back to generation data and maybe how some of what we've delivered on generation data helps to deal with some of these issues, hopefully. So we're going to hand over to Orla Casey now from Feltec, who developed a lot of the resources, the online resources for this program. So Orla, if I could hand over to you.
Great, thanks Pádraig, and to follow our expert speakers is some task, I'll tell you. But we had, I suppose, worked with our partners in the Generation Data project to develop a new set of training resources for, I'm just going to change your screen there, Éanna, if that's okay. Perfect. Okay, are we all right there? Can we see mine? Yeah?
Yeah.
Great. So it was actually Pádraig at our first partner meeting that came up with the tagline for the project, which is using data for profit. And I think that's really important in that our target market for this project was lecturers typically in business and entrepreneurship that may not have a background in this emerging field, and we saw that from the research that we conducted in the first intellectual output that was delivered. So we've constructed an open source classroom course, and Catherine will follow me and show how that's available in an online learning, self-learning version. But for us, it's about teaching and equipping teachers to teach an entry-level course on data as broad as it is. So you can imagine we literally have introduced topics, giving I suppose a opening a level. So the website is generationdata.eu that was mentioned earlier, and we have a section that's learning, a dedicated section called Learning Resources. So as I said, to enable facilitators, being lecturers, trainers and teachers, to deliver the classroom and small group training to business management, but also startup entrepreneurs, because I was smiling when Owen was giving his speech because my background is marketing. So obviously everything that we are taught in marketing in third level institutes such as LYIT is very much turned on its head by I suppose data. One thing that really got from today is the ethical use of data, the whole area of trust, the dirty data, clean data. So I think we all have a responsibility, and as teachers and lecturers, that's something that business faculty lecturers need to introduce a little bit more, that it's not just all about the power of marketing, but it's very much about, using data for good as well as everything else. But I suppose what we found was that the teachers that we represent, the majority recognised that they lacked the pedagogic strategies to teach the topic with confidence that they needed to. So we have 6 modules. This is a screenshot of what you see when you land on the Learning Resources page. Scroll down, and each of the modules has a PowerPoint presentation. that can be adapted and edited by the lecturer for use in their own classroom. So each of them, the power of data, working with data, and so on. So as I said, we have six different modules. You click on them, you can click on them individually. These literally have only gone live, so we're actually just in test mode, but they are they're ready to go and ready to be used. You can also download these and all the other classroom resources as a zip file at the very bottom of the page. Just to give you a flavour of what some of the power of data or some of the modules look like, just to mention they also come with the facilitator's guide. So this is very much a trainer's guide that gives the context, gives how you can use exercises. Importantly, somebody mentioned earlier the use of case studies. So from Amazon to Tesco to a travel company in Donegal, we've given case studies of how, I suppose, companies and businesses are using data solutions in how they in their business operations. So why data skills matter, I suppose, is a very much introductory module that brings people through there, and we ask the lecturers to use it in conjunction with the module 1 notes. Each module starts off with, I suppose, a learning objective. And this one is to discover the importance of data as a driver of business growth and profitability. We then introduce 3 to 4 key themes that we cover in that module as an introductory scene setting way, and then we're into a specific overview of what the content of that module is. So for example, we go right back in history on this one, and just a little bit on the history of data, just understanding, I suppose, the principles of big data, and then bringing it right through to the benefits of data for business. The modules are not long. They are designed, I suppose, in such a way that it is an introductory level, as I mentioned, and enriched, I suppose, with case studies. We also have what I found really interesting. The first thing that we did was actually we developed a 3-page glossary that literally takes every single term that we use in the course and gives a very straightforward meaning. And that glossary alone is worth downloading in this space. So that's available to download as a separate resource as well. Working with data, again, this gives you the overview, the feel confident coordinating the entire data science pipeline from acquisition to publication. So, you know, we're increasing, I suppose, the competence level as we go and introducing the terms that are more relevant or more specific. And then again, the 3 to 4 5 themes that we have in that. I'm not going to go through all 6 modules now, but it will give you, I'd really invite you to go onto the website, generationdata.eu, learning resources table and tab, and investigate it from there. We also have a pilot test running currently at the moment, and I will send the link to when I'm sending out the slides, and I would invite our audience to participate if that is to participate in that short survey would be really beneficial for us. So I suppose the message is we're live, we're ready for circulation and for lecturers and teachers across Europe to download this. To mention, it's also available in Polish and Lithuanian. And English. So we really hope that people find it a valuable resource. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Orla.
That's just an example of the Tesco one.
Let's see.
Great.
So, so maybe we could just maybe, because it's quite they're both quite connected anyway. Maybe we'd move on to Catherine and maybe just talk a little bit of some of the technical aspects of this with regards to the online research or the online resources that are available for this. Catherine?
Hi, yes, thanks, Park. So I'm Catherine Neal, and I work for EUEI, which is the e-Learning Institute. We are a small organisation based in Denmark. Obviously, I'm not from Denmark, but by accent. But our company is based in Denmark, and I'm from Northern Ireland. So, as we have discussed, we developed the online platform, and we are also in the midst of developing and adapting Orla's classroom course materials into the online section of our Generation Data course. So we wanted this to be a flexible learning platform. We wanted it to be something that was quite collaborative, and with all of the information that we've received from our expert speakers, I think it's quite fitting that we've decided to use TED-Ed, and TED-Ed is a collaborative platform where anyone can go on and create lessons and share their lessons. So I think that the collaboration of data and the utilization of many people's data and many people's information, sharing it is very beneficial. So I will try and share my screen, and I will take you through just the website and where to find our online resources. Fingers crossed.
Good.
Okay, so we have just a half a screen, I think. Okay. So as discussed, this is our Generation Data website, and as Orla said, the branding was done by Feltec and Orla's team, and it's fantastic. I think it's very bright and vibrant, and that kind of visual guide that you need to draw you into something. So hopefully you're all interested, and we'll go and check out our website after we're finished here. And if you go across at the top, we have our learning resources. And if you click onto the online course, at the minute we are currently developing the online course, and so I'm adapting, as I said, Orla's resources and materials to create this online flexible independent learning that is kind of more bite-sized, and we're going to pull in some other resources. So at the minute we have one module up and running, and the rest are in the works and should be on there over the next few weeks. So we've just got a little bit about the objective of the course, the specific objectives that we as the Generation Data partners wanted to achieve. And if you scroll down, then we have our TED-Ed, which is embedded on the website. I have also included below the module notes that can be read in tandem with the module. So if we just click on the module, it'll take us through to our TED-Ed. And I'm not sure how familiar everyone is with TED-Ed, but we have the process. Sorry. We have this 5-step process. So we begin with a little bit of information about our aim, about who we want to engage, and really these resources are open source. They are available to anyone who's interested in Generation Data, about using data for profit, big and smart data, and how you can use that and learn more about it. So this is kind of a good open source resource that you can send to anyone, your students, you can send it, and they can go on themselves and do it in their own time and at their own speed. And it just means that if someone is maybe at a different level, it means that they can get up to speed before the classroom course, or if someone is maybe struggling a little bit, they can take their time, work through it at their own pace, and read our additional resources. So we have our module here paced out in the video, so you can watch that as you read the module notes alongside. And if you tap on Think, then down below, sorry, it's frozen. Okay. So we have some discussion, some kind of just little questions to get you thinking. So what type of big data do you contribute to on a daily basis, and were you aware that that data was being collected? So I think a lot of us, well, I definitely have learned a lot from Owen and Aina just today. So I think that a lot of us aren't even aware of the data we contribute to on a daily basis and the data we interact with on a daily basis. So these questions are just to get us thinking, and you can come and have a little discussion with us. And then, do you feel comfortable with the level of data that you are participating in the collection of your data? As you said, those online websites that are collecting our cookies and they know all about us, and I think it's very fitting that yesterday there was an app called House Party, and everyone had downloaded it because of the isolation, and everyone was using it to talk to their friends, kind of like FaceTime. And yesterday they found out that it was being hacked, and people's WhatsApps, Facebooks, banking apps, everything was being hacked. So if you have that app, just be careful and make sure the information, who you're giving your information to, is very important. And I know that I'm guilty of it. When we download an app, you tick for everything and you say, yeah, no problem, as long as you can get quick access to what you want. So I think it's good to raise awareness and even just take a pause and think, who am I giving my data to, and what data am I allowing them access to? Okay, and if we click on to dig deeper, then we just have this additional resource, which is actually a European document, and it just takes us through some more information on big data, smart data, and business. So you can have a little look. I'm not sure if it will load. So it's just downloading a PDF for me. So you can click that and download it and have a read at it. So it's just an additional resource that can kind of bolster the stuff that Orla has talked about in her course. And then we have a discussion section. So utilize your data. So I've just popped on a little discussion there, and I hope you'll all maybe come and participate and respond to this. So thinking of small businesses, hairdressers, a mechanical garage, how could these people use their data to for profit, as our tagline says? So maybe it's the patterns of customer behavior. Maybe you know when the customer needs a service and you can send out a little text message or an email to remind them. And there are many ways of using data to boost your profits. So it's just thinking sometimes in a smaller SME mindset, and allowing them to use that for their benefit. And finally, we just have a parting note. So with great power comes great responsibility. I think that's quite fitting for big data. So if you would like to join our Facebook page, that's just jumped off there for me, but if you would like to join our Facebook page, I've included the link in our final notes section. We'd love to hear from you, and I would really like if you would all go on, have a look at our website, and if you have feedback, if you have comments, pop them in a little message to us on Facebook, and we take them all on board. And as Orla said, we will be carrying out the testing of our resources over the next while, and all of the online modules will be live, and we'll be sure to send you out a link so you can all go on, have a look, and you can let us know if you've benefited from Generation Data. Thank you.
Thank you, Catherine. So a lot of comments coming in just about wanting to get the stuff, if possible, sent to the presentation, so we can do that going forward. There's no problem with that. Look, we're more or less on schedule, so I think if there's no question from the panelists, maybe we could bring the session to an end, if that's okay. So can I just thank the speakers for an excellent job today. So that's Joanna, Owen, Aina, Orla, and Catherine. I'd like to thank everybody who participated and who joined us on the webinar. There's over 40 people throughout Europe on here, and so it's great to see that level of interest. And you know, you can link up with us through the website and Facebook and all those other things. So the presentations are available, and we will send them out to you all. And the final word is just hope you all keep well in these difficult times and look after yourselves. And I'm sure we'll touch base again. So thanks to everyone, and goodbye.
Thanks.
All right. Thanks.
And Patrick, thank you for hosting the meeting.
Yes, no problem.
Thank you for hosting the meeting, and I'm sure that when the hard times are over, we'll be able to meet during another LTT meeting.
Hopefully. That's great. So thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye now.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Take care.